Imagine this. It's 3 a.m., the kind of late-night hour where the world feels still, and the only sound is the faint hum of a refrigerator in a sprawling penthouse. The kind of hour where secrets are whispered and lives can change in an instant. Now picture this, a self-made millionaire, a man who has everything money can buy: luxury cars, designer suits, a skyline view that screams success, walking down the dimly lit hallway of his own home. And there, curled up on the floor, fast asleep, is his cleaning lady. Not in her uniform, not with a mop in hand, but vulnerable, peaceful, and utterly out of place in his world of polished perfection. What would you do? What would he do? This is where our story begins, and trust me, it's not what you're expecting. By the end of this video, you'll have the answers to questions you didn't even know you had. But first, let's dive into the mystery, the heartbreak, and the love that unfolds in the most unlikely way. If you're here, it's because you're curious. You're the kind of person who loves a good story, one that pulls you in, makes you feel something, and keeps you guessing until the very end. And that's exactly what I'm going to give you. But before we go any further, let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like life is just too predictable? Like you're going through the motions day after day, waiting for something extraordinary to happen? Well, that's exactly how our millionaire, let's call him Ethan, felt before that fateful night. He had it all, or so he thought. But sometimes, life has a way of showing us that what we're missing isn't something money can buy. It's something real, something raw, something human. And that's where Maria, the cleaning lady, comes in. Now, I know what you're thinking. A millionaire and a cleaning lady? Really? But stick with me, because this isn't some cheesy romance trope. This is a story about two people from completely different worlds who find something in each other that they didn't even know they were searching for. It's about the walls we build around ourselves, the masks we wear, and the moments that force us to take them off. It's about love, yes, but it's also about vulnerability, trust, and the courage to let someone see the real you. And here's the thing, you're not just going to watch this story unfold. You're going to feel it. You're going to see yourself in these characters, in their struggles, their hopes, and their fears. Because at the end of the day, we're all searching for connection, aren't we? We're all looking for that one person who sees us, really sees us, and loves us anyway. So, let's set the stage. Ethan is the kind of guy who's used to being in control. He's built an empire from the ground up, and he's not afraid to make tough decisions. But when he finds Maria asleep in his hallway, something shifts. Maybe it's the way she looks so peaceful, so unguarded, in a place where he's always felt the need to be on guard. Maybe it's the way she reminds him of a simpler time, before the money, before the pressure, before the loneliness. Whatever it is, he can't just walk away. And that decision, that one moment of curiosity and compassion, sets off a chain of events that will change both of their lives forever. But here's the twist. Maria isn't just a cleaning lady. She's a woman with her own story, her own dreams, and her own secrets. And as Ethan gets to know her, he starts to realize that there's more to her and to himself than he ever imagined. But it's not going to be easy. There are obstacles, misunderstandings, and moments of heartbreak that will test them both. And that's where you come in. Because as you watch their story unfold, you're going to be asking yourself, can two people from such different worlds really find happiness together? Or are some divides just too big to cross? I'm not going to give you all the answers right now. That's not how this works. What I'm going to do is take you on a journey that will make you laugh, cry, and maybe even see your own life in a new light. And by the time we're done, you'll have the answers you're looking for. But here's the thing, you're going to have to stick with me until the end. Because this isn't just a story about love. It's a story about second chances, about finding the courage to take a risk, and about the power of human connection. And trust me, you're not going to want to miss a single moment. So here's what I need you to do. Take a deep breath. Get comfortable. And let yourself get lost in this story. Because by the time it's over, You're not just going to feel like you've watched a video. You're going to feel like you've lived an experience. And who knows? Maybe it will even inspire you to take a risk of your own, to open your heart to the unexpected, and to believe that love can find you in the most unlikely of places. But before we get to the happy ending, or whatever ending this story has in store, we need to start at the beginning. And that beginning is a millionaire, a cleaning lady, and a hallway that becomes the doorway to something neither of them saw coming. Now, I know you're curious. I know you're wondering what happens next. And I promise, you're going to find out. But first, let's take a closer look at Ethan and Maria. Who are they, really? What brought them to this moment? And what secrets are they hiding from each other and from themselves? Because here's the thing, love doesn't just happen. It's built moment by moment, choice by choice. And sometimes it starts with something as simple as a late-night encounter in a hallway. But where it goes from there? Well, that's the mystery. And it's one you're not going to want to miss. So, are you ready? Let's dive in. But be warned, once you start this journey, there's no turning back. And by the time we're done, you'll be asking yourself one question. What would you do if you found love in the most unlikely way? Ethan's life, on the surface, was the epitome of success. He had clawed his way up from nothing, turning a small tech startup into a billion-dollar empire. His name was synonymous with innovation, his face plastered across magazine covers, and his lifestyle the envy of many. But behind the tailored suits and the gleaming skyscrapers, there was a void, a loneliness that no amount of money could fill. His days were a blur of board meetings, investor calls, and late-night strategy sessions. His nights were spent in a penthouse that felt more like a museum than a home, filled with expensive art and designer furniture but devoid of warmth. He had everything, yet he felt nothing. That was until the night he found Maria asleep in his hallway. Maria, on the other hand, was a woman who had learned to survive with very little. She had come to the city years ago, chasing the promise of a better life, but the reality had been far harsher than she imagined. She worked multiple jobs, cleaning offices during the day and wealthy homes at night, just to make ends meet. Her life was a constant cycle of work and exhaustion, but she carried herself with a quiet dignity that made her stand out. She wasn't just cleaning houses, she was observing the lives of the people who lived in them, piecing together stories from the fragments they left behind. And in Ethan's penthouse, she had noticed something unusual. Despite the opulence, there was a sense of emptiness, a loneliness that mirrored her own. She had never expected to cross paths with him, though. Not like this. The night Ethan found her, Maria had been working late as usual. She had been feeling unwell all day, but she couldn't afford to take time off. The last thing she remembered was sitting down for a moment to catch her breath, and then everything went black. When she woke up, she was in a guest room she had never seen before, wrapped in a blanket that smelled faintly of cedar and sandalwood. For a moment she panicked, thinking she had been caught slacking on the job. But then Ethan walked in, holding a cup of tea, and the look on his face wasn't anger or annoyance. It was concern. He asked if she was okay, if she needed anything, and for the first time in a long time, Maria felt seen. Not as a cleaning lady, but as a person. That moment was the beginning of something neither of them could have predicted. Ethan started paying more attention to Maria, not in a creepy or inappropriate way, but in a way that showed genuine curiosity. He began to notice the little things, the way she organized his bookshelves with care, the way she always left a fresh vase of flowers on his dining table, the way she hummed softly to herself as she worked. He found himself looking forward to the nights she was scheduled to clean, not because he needed his floors polished, but because he wanted to talk to her. And Maria, though hesitant at first, began to open up. She told him about her life, her dreams, and the struggles she had faced. She didn't ask for pity or handouts. She simply shared her story, and in doing so, she gave Ethan a glimpse of a world he had never known. But as their connection deepened, so did the complications. Ethan's world was one of privilege and power, and not everyone in his circle approved of his growing friendship with Maria. His business partner, a shrewd and calculating woman named Claire, saw Maria as a distraction, a liability that could tarnish Ethan's reputation. She began to dig into Maria's past, uncovering secrets that even Ethan didn't know. Meanwhile, Maria had her own doubts. She couldn't shake the feeling that she didn't belong in Ethan's world, no matter how kind he was. She had her own struggles to contend with, including a teenage son she was raising on her own and a past she had tried to leave behind. And then there was the mystery of the hallway. Why had Maria been there that night? What had caused her to collapse? As Ethan began to piece together the clues, he realized there was more to her story. And she had let on. He discovered that she had been working double shifts to pay off a debt she had inherited from her late husband, a debt that had put her and her son in danger. The more he learned, the more determined he became to help her. But Maria was proud and independent. She didn't want his money, she wanted his respect. And that was something Ethan was still learning how to give. The weeks turned into months. Their relationship became a delicate dance of trust and vulnerability. Ethan found himself questioning everything he thought he knew about success and happiness, while Maria began to wonder if she could ever truly let someone into her life. But just as they were starting to find their footing, a new threat emerged. Someone from Maria's past resurfaced, threatening to expose secrets that could destroy everything they had built. And Ethan, for all his wealth and power, was powerless to stop it. The tension between them grew, not because they didn't care for each other, but because they cared too much. They were both afraid of getting hurt, afraid of losing what they had, afraid of the unknown. And as the stakes grew higher, they were forced to confront the question that had been hanging over them from the beginning. Could two people from such different worlds really find a way to be together? Or were they destined to remain forever apart? The answer, of course, is still unfolding. But one thing is certain, this is a story about more than just love. It's about the choices we make, the risks we take, and the courage it takes to let someone see the real us. It's about finding light in the darkest places and discovering that sometimes the most unlikely connections are the ones that change us the most. So, as you watch this story unfold, ask yourself, what would you do if you found love in the most unexpected way? And more importantly, would you have the courage to hold on to it? Because in the end, that's what this story is really about, not just finding love, but fighting for it. And trust me, the fight is just beginning. The days turned into weeks. Ethan and Maria's connection deepened, but so did the shadows lurking at the edges of their lives. Ethan's business partner, Claire, had been quietly orchestrating a campaign to undermine Maria, convinced that her presence was a threat to Ethan's empire. Claire had always been fiercely protective of Ethan, not just as a business partner, but as someone who had once harbored feelings for him. She saw Maria as an intruder, someone who didn't belong in their world, and she was determined to expose what she believed to be Maria's true intentions. Using her resources, Claire dug deeper into Maria's past, uncovering a trail of secrets that even Maria had tried to bury. She discovered that Maria's late husband had been involved in a shady business deal gone wrong, leaving behind a mountain of debt and a dangerous group of people who were still looking for repayment. Claire saw this as the perfect ammunition to drive a wedge between Ethan and Maria. But what she didn't realize was that her actions would set off a chain of events that would put everyone in danger. Meanwhile, Maria was grappling with her own fears. She had started to let her guard down around Ethan, allowing herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could have a life beyond the constant struggle. But the reappearance of her late husband's debt collectors shattered that fragile hope. One evening, as she was leaving Ethan's penthouse, she was confronted by two men in a dark alley. They demanded payment, threatening not only her but her son, Miguel, who was her entire world. Maria knew she couldn't involve Ethan, she didn't want to drag him into her mess, but she also knew she couldn't handle this alone. The weight of her past was closing in, and she felt trapped, caught between the life she was trying to build and the one she couldn't escape. Ethan, oblivious to the danger Maria was in, was focused on a different kind of threat. His company was on the verge of a major merger, one that would solidify his legacy, but also require him to make some morally questionable decisions. Claire was pushing him to cut corners, to prioritize profit over people. And Ethan found himself at a crossroads. He had always prided himself on his integrity, but the pressure was mounting, and he could feel himself being pulled in a direction he didn't want to go. It was Maria who reminded him of what truly mattered. In one of their late-night conversations, she told him about her son's dream of becoming an engineer, a dream that seemed impossible given their circumstances. Her words struck a chord with Ethan, making him question whether his own success had come at the cost of his humanity. But before he could make any decisions, Claire dropped a bombshell. She presented him with a dossier on Maria's past, painting her as a liability and a fraud. Ethan was torn. He wanted to believe in Maria, but the evidence was hard to ignore. The tension between Ethan and Maria came to a head one stormy night. Maria had been avoiding Ethan, afraid that he would discover the truth about her past and the danger she was in. But Ethan, desperate for answers, confronted her. The conversation was heated, filled with accusations and misunderstandings. Maria felt betrayed, believing that Ethan saw her as nothing more than a charity case, while Ethan struggled to reconcile the woman he had come to care for with the person Claire had described. It was a moment of raw emotion, where both of them laid bare their fears and insecurities. And just when it seemed like they might find a way to bridge the gap between them, the unexpected happened. Miguel, Maria's son, showed up at the penthouse, frantic and scared. He had been followed by the debt collectors, who had threatened to hurt him if Maria didn't pay up. The reality of the situation hit Ethan like a ton of bricks. This wasn't just about Maria anymore. It was about protecting an innocent child. In a surprising twist, Ethan didn't hesitate. He made a decision that would change everything. He offered to pay off Maria's debt, not out of pity or obligation, but because he realized that love isn't about keeping score. It's about being there for someone when they need you most, even if it means risking everything. But his offer came with a condition. Maria had to trust him completely, to let him into her life in a way she never had before. It was a leap of faith for both of them, one that would test the strength of their bond and force them to confront their deepest fears. As the storm raged outside, Ethan and Maria found themselves at a crossroads. The debt collectors were closing in. Claire's manipulations were threatening to tear them apart, and the weight of their pasts was bearing down on them. But in that moment, they made a choice. They chose to fight for each other, for Miguel, and for the chance at a future they both desperately wanted but never thought they could have. The road ahead was uncertain, filled with obstacles and challenges, but they were determined to face it together. And as the first light of dawn broke through the storm clouds, they knew that whatever happened next, they would face it as a team. But the story doesn't end here. In fact, this is just the beginning of the most intense chapter yet. Because while Ethan and Maria have taken a step toward each other, the forces working against them are only growing stronger. Claire isn't done yet, and the debt collectors aren't the only threat lurking in the shadows. There are secrets still to be uncovered, choices still to be made, and a love that will be tested in ways neither of them could have imagined. So, as you watch this story unfold, ask yourself, what would you do if the person you loved was in danger? Would you risk everything to protect them, even if it meant losing yourself in the process? Because in the end, that's what this story is really about, not just finding love, but fighting for it, no matter the cost. And trust me, the fight is far from over. The storm outside mirrored the chaos unfolding inside Ethan's penthouse. With Miguel safe but visibly shaken, Ethan and Maria knew they had to act fast. The debt collectors had made their threats clear, and Claire's manipulations were escalating, leaving them with little room to breathe. But in the face of adversity, something extraordinary happened. Ethan and Maria found strength in each other. They realized that their love wasn't just a fleeting emotion. It was a force powerful enough to overcome even the darkest of circumstances. Together, they devised a plan, one that would not only protect Miguel, but also expose the truth about Claire's schemes and put an end to the debt collector's reign of terror once and for all. Ethan used his resources to track down the debt collectors, leveraging his connections to ensure they would never threaten Maria or Miguel again. But it wasn't just about money or power, it was about justice. He discovered that the debt collectors had been exploiting dozens of other families, preying on their vulnerabilities and trapping them in cycles of fear and poverty. With Maria's encouragement, Ethan decided to take a stand. Not just for her, but for all the people who had been victimized. He used his platform to shine a light on their plight, rallying support from his network and even partnering with law enforcement to bring the criminals to justice. It was a risky move, one that could have jeopardized his reputation and his company. But Ethan no longer cared about the cost. For the first time in years, he felt like he was doing something that truly mattered. Meanwhile, Maria confronted Claire in a tense and emotional showdown. She had always known that Claire saw her as a threat, but she never imagined the lengths Claire would go to destroy her. Armed with the truth about Claire's manipulations, Maria stood her ground, refusing to be intimidated. She told Claire about the life she had built despite the odds, about the son she was fighting for, and about the love she had found with Ethan. Her words struck a nerve, forcing Claire to confront the emptiness of her own life. In a moment of unexpected vulnerability, Claire broke down, revealing that her actions had been driven by jealousy and loneliness. It was a turning point, not just for Claire, but for Maria as well. She realized that forgiveness, while difficult, was the only way to break the cycle of pain and resentment. As the dust began to settle, Ethan and Maria found themselves at a crossroads. The threats were gone, the secrets were out, and they were finally free to be together. But their journey had changed them in ways they never expected. Ethan had learned that true success wasn't measured in dollars or accolades, but in the lives he touched and the love he shared. Maria had discovered that she was stronger than she ever believed, capable of not only surviving, but thriving. Together, they had faced their fears, confronted their pasts, and emerged stronger than ever. But just when it seemed like their story was coming to a happy ending, an unexpected twist changed everything. One evening, as Ethan and Maria were celebrating their newfound peace, they received a letter from Miguel's school. It was a scholarship offer, one that would cover his tuition for the next 4 years and give him the opportunity to pursue his dream of becoming an engineer. The scholarship had been anonymously funded, and while they would never know for sure who was behind it, Maria had a suspicion. She remembered the conversation she had with Claire, the tears and the apologies, and she couldn't help but wonder if this was Claire's way of making amends. It was a gesture of redemption, a reminder that even the most broken people could find a way to heal. The story of Ethan and Maria is one of love, resilience, and the power of second chances. It's a reminder that life's greatest treasures often come from the most unexpected places, and that true happiness is found not in what we have, but in who we share it with. As the camera pans out, showing Ethan, Maria, and Miguel laughing together in the warmth of their home, the audience is left with a sense of hope and inspiration. Because in the end, this isn't just a story about a millionaire and a cleaning lady. It's a story about the beauty of human connection and the extraordinary things that can happen when we dare to open our hearts. So, as you reflect on this journey, ask yourself, what would you do if love found you in the most unlikely way? Would you have the courage to embrace it? Because in the end, that's what life is all about, not the moments we plan, but the ones we never see coming. And who knows? Maybe your own unexpected love story is just around the corner, waiting to be discovered. Until then, take a lesson from Ethan and Maria. Love boldly, live authentically, and never underestimate the power of a second chance. Because sometimes, the most beautiful endings are the ones we never saw coming.